Hey, welcome to another episode of Prepper Talk Radio. This is our weekly live. We do this every Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. So wherever you are, drop what you're doing and connect with us. If you're here and available tonight, great. If you can't make it tonight, you want to make it next week, we're going to be here. And it's always a fun-filled conversation because our audience participates. We get tons of input and great advice from seasoned, practical, preparedness-minded people just like yourself. Without further ado, we're going to bust right in and start chit-chatting about weakness, about mindset, about what we call excuses, the belly button of stupidity. Guys, we're not gonna pull any punches. We're gonna slugfest this one and talk about what can and can't happen, what's stopping you from doing what you need to be doing, and having a really good, lively conversation. But before we do that, I want to remind you guys to go get your first aid, because after this slugfest, you're going to need some bandages, and maybe you need to stop the bleeding. Go get that trauma kit from AMP3, AMP-3.net. Use the code PrepperTalk, and you're going to save 15%. That's huge. That's only for our audience, and you can share that code with anybody. Here's the cool thing. We don't make a penny from that. They're actually a show sponsor. This goes to help them, but it also goes to help you because it's all American-made and resourced products specifically for you, the prepared-minded individual. And the owners, David and his wife, Beth, he is an ER doctor, retired, and he retired U.S. Navy. Guy knows this stuff, and they are fantastic preppers and just fantastic people. So check them out, amp-3.net. Now let's dive in to this mental magma lava flow of stupidity, the thing we call weaknesses. It's an excuse. It's a sign of a weak mind. But before the show, Parrish, you said something that I think is extremely profound.
Let me say it again.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I want to just dead air for a while.
Yeah. Let's drum roll. Let's leave it. The silence. The sound of silence. So I said that you can have excuses or you can have results, but you can't have both. And I believe that's true in anything in life. You know, you can have excuses about why your marriage is not working, why your kids aren't being obedient, why your money isn't right, why your boss doesn't like you. But what are the results that you want? Usually are not coming because of some excuse that you've made or some exception that you've done in your life. So that's the thing, is if you like where your life is, then you're fine. But if you don't, if there's some area of your life right now that's not what you want, do a review, do an audit, if you will, do a life audit and find out, like, where am I making excuses? Where am I holding back? Where am I not becoming the person that I need to be in order to have the results that I need? So that was kind of the idea there.
Cool. Yeah, I think we could talk about excuses in general and specifically as well, because I think pretty much everyone here has given up on excuses. They may have reasons, but they have gotten past their excuses and are preparing. I think there are, maybe call it fine tuning or more specific reasons or excuses for not doing this or not doing that, or making this choice or making that choice. And maybe we can talk a little bit about that too, because we're all different. We're all in different situations and different times in our lives. And so an excuse may be a reason may be an excuse, if that makes any sense. And I don't want to pull any punches, but typical when I think of this topic, I think of everyone else, right? Those who aren't in the community, and how can we help those people overcome their excuses? And I think the first thing I want to throw out is one of the excuses I see is, well, because it's hard. Prepping is hard. Getting ready, preparing is hard. And this whole world, it's focused around convenience, right?
Yep. It's funny. I just had this conversation with a recruiter that was calling me about an open position with the company. She's like, you should come over here. And she's like, but I want to ask you about your LinkedIn profile. It says you're a preparedness expert and a podcast host. Like, what do you talk to people about? And the conversation turned to, no offense to all you Gen Zers and end of the millennial line group, like, you live in this world of such affluence, especially in the United States. We are the wealthiest we've ever been. We've got more on demand than we've ever had. You don't have to go to the store to shop.
Mhm.
You don't have to wait for weeks for something to be shipped to you, right? In the olden days where you had to look in a catalog to order something and then 8 to 10 months later get across the ocean and take the train and then the wagon and then finally show up at the local delivery, store that you then had to ride your wagon or horse to get. Right? We don't live like that. And for those who've never lived anything other than this on-demand life, like she's like, how do you help these people? How do you talk to these people? How do you change their mind about these things? And honestly, you can't without great evidence, without proof of the importance of having a plan, the importance of getting rid of the excuses and actually doing something. Because I'll tell you, I took the scouts camping and I say camping, I shouldn't say camping. We did a scout air quote camp, a retreat. And we were in a cabin and they found out the cabin had Wi-Fi and they were fighting over who could get the Wi-Fi password because it only allowed 3 connections at a time.
No, geez.
I'm like, you guys, we've got fishing, hiking, boating, horseback riding, and they're like, I gotta get online. I'm like, so I took the paper and I shredded it up and ate it, and they're like, what? I'm like, no, it's gone. Whoa. And they were like, I thought someone was gonna pass out of sorrow. I'm like, that is a sign of a weak mind. The inability to disconnect is going to be the death of so many people. And we saw this week when we had that outage, that huge service outage. I mean, it affected over 40% of the United States. And it was an hour long? I don't know the details. I apologize.
Yeah.
But it's funny because banks weren't working. Debit cards weren't working. Like carry cash, right? We've planned for this. We've trained for this. It's easier to have backup and alternate solutions than it is to try to live the on-demand life when that life no longer exists or gets disrupted.
Yeah, I believe that there's a lot of people that are so complacent and they're just so comfortable in their lifestyle that unfortunately it's going to be, like that quote, when the time for decision has come, the time for preparation has passed, and they're going to realize, holy smokes, it literally becomes, and I get it, there's a lot of this, boy who cried wolf a little bit, like the big earthquake's supposed to hit. Oh, it doesn't. And then the big civil war is going to happen. And then it doesn't. And then the flood and this natural disaster and this, and then it doesn't. But the reality is that at any minute you could lose your job. At any minute you could have a family emergency. Like my wife's health this last 6 months have been so substantially different than anything we've had in the 20 plus years we've been married that I wasn't prepared. Like it's like, you never know what's going to happen in your life. And so, we're coming out of it because we're finally figuring things out. But it's like, that kind of stuff can be, what if you have a loved one that gets a disease that he or she can't work anymore? Now what are you going to do? How are you going to pay the bills? How are you going to survive? I mean, those are just everyday normal kind of things. We're not even talking about, the earthquake or the tornado that comes also to destroy your life. So, what are the neat thing about what's happening in the world right now is that we're slowly having a lot of these excuses eliminated just by watching the daggum news. I mean, shoot, we just saw a potential presidential candidate almost get assassinated in live TV. We have had just in the last 10 days, 12 days, we've had almost the whole world come to a halt with some kind of security update that was supposedly, there was a weird code in the dude, you're the number one security company in the world and you don't know how to do an update? Like, come on, bro.
Not going to run that first. Yeah.
Right. Like we're just seeing things happening that it's like, okay, people, the excuses are fewer and farther between now.
Yeah, well, the things that are working against, I wouldn't say against us, things that are working against those who really need to prepare, like Mike says, oh, this happened, but then nothing happened, right? Okay, so now it's become normal. It's normalized. Just like this last week, it was a crazy freaking week. Absolutely. Now, if this were 10 years ago, what do you think would have happened to the markets?
Panic.
This last week,
Markets would have
it would have
crashed.
potentially crashed 20 plus percent. Things would have been very different. But what happened? Nothing. There's very little reaction to any of this.
Yeah,
I mean,
we
obviously
actually
those
had
who
a
are
pretty good
watching are
month,
awake.
a rally last week.
And so this normalcy of, and I believe this is all the world's a stage. That's what I believe. And it's part of conditioning, it's part of programming. And so that's something I think we're really fighting against, is that normalcy that, you've been saying this is going to happen for 10 years. Yeah. And it's still going to happen. But people use that as an excuse to say, then I don't need to do anything about it because you said it was going to happen and it hasn't happened yet. Right. So how much longer do I have to wait? Oh my gosh.
Well, I think we got to remind people, it's like there's prepping for the apocalypse and there's prepping for quality of life, right? Most of us are practical preppers. Most of us are prepping for quality of life. And to Paris's point, you were talking about your wife's health issues that have come up in the last 6 months, right? That's huge. That's a giant disruption. What are things you've done in preparedness that have actually helped you get through that better? Like, have you thought about that at all? Have you looked at what you've done in preparedness? Is there anything that's helped you through this better?
I mean, you hit it on the head in the beginning of the call or the show today with mindset, and having the one thing that I know for sure is that, and I still have anxiety and I still have, worries and I still have all those things. But at the end of I have a foundation of when a problem arises, I can work through it and find a solution. I have the skills, I have the capacity, I have the ability. I'm still alive. As long as I'm still breathing, as long as I'm still alive, I'm going to find a way to get through it. And that mentality is huge. And it goes, I like what you said, Shane, earlier, because this is really true. Like a lot of people I don't want to do it because of that. Like sometimes people say to me, like this was mind-boggling to me earlier in my career as a financial guy. Somebody said to me something along the lines of, well, I don't want to invest a lot of money right now because my kids, I need to spend it on my kids because they're young. And I'm like, so your excuse to not plan for your future is because you wanted to do something right now. Well, that should be your reason for wanting to plan for your future and prepare for your future. And I liked what you said earlier. The reason we need to find a way to switch our excuses into reasons and have those be reasons. And so I just know that, when life throws me, I guess it's the old adage, when life gives you a lemon, you turn it into lemonade. Because if you know how to make lemonade, then when you get lemons, you're going to be okay.
Crazy fact. Lemons aren't naturally occurring. Lemons are a hybrid of a key lime.
Oh, right.
I learned that last week. That's the craziness. In other craziness, Rebecca makes a fantastic point here. Things I didn't have in my expectation for 24 was definitely Y2K. Right? Who had that on their bingo card? Who has Biden missing for health reasons on their bingo card? Who had an attempted assassination on their bingo card? Like, we live in a place and a time where so much is going on at any given time. You could live in a full stress mode situation, and yet there are still people that are frogs sitting in water waiting for it to boil, and it's bubbling, and they're just like, we don't need to do anything yet. We're going to be fine. And they're half cooked, right? If you prep, if you plan, if you do these things, you're reinforcing and fortifying your life to keep your normal and your sanity.
Mm-hmm.
And that helps create a better, safer environment around you, a better neighborhood. Like my wife had surgery a while ago on her wrist, and it affected her work. It affected her ability to do things around the house. And I had to do a lot more of the home chores that we split. And I'm like, holy crap, working full time, doing a podcast, taking care of the kids, trying to do the homeschooling of the kids, like stack. Now I'm 100% on the laundry. Oh, now I'm 100% on all the cleaning. Now I'm 100%, right? She had to recover. And those disruptions, some people will see that and they will completely break and crumble and they can't move forward.
Yeah.
right? That's because they've leveraged weakness in their life.
Well, I think, like I put Mike's comment on highlight here is that unless it happens to you, it doesn't necessarily mean anything, right? Or someone happens to someone very close to you and you see the actual results of whatever that is. It's really hard to understand the reason to prep for some people. And I think part of that is the programming of everything, I would say I don't want to generalize, that most people out in the general public, us not being general public, right? They're forced to kind of fight against that. That is holding them back. That's brainwashing and teaching them otherwise. It's working against them for what we're trying to help with, right?
Let me do a shout out real quick.
Go for
Stacking Surfer. Hey, welcome to the show, bro. It's good to see you here. He and I met. He's in a precious metals group that we're in, and so he's got a great channel for if you're interested in knowing more about precious metals. He's got a great channel.
Awesome.
Check out Stacking Surfer. That was cool. Good to have you here.
Well, he made the point. I mean, he was stuck in the airport for 3 days and then had to rent a car because he couldn't get out. But he had the funds that he could just rent a car and leave, right? It's if you have only one option and you did that by choice, you are limiting yourself. If you stack solutions, like in that case, having extra cash on hand, having different types of methods to pay for things, right? That saved him from being stuck at that airport longer, right? The simplest thing, like having a friend to help you lift and move that couch in and out of your house is a whole lot easier than doing it yourself.
Yeah. Another thing is that a lot of people say, well, I can't prepare because it's so expensive. Well, I'm self-employed. So thankfully I've built a residual type of income with my insurance business. But without that, it's being self-employed, you never know how much money's coming in 1 month to the next. And to me, rather than saying, well, I can't afford to prepare because I don't know how much money I'm going to make, that's all the more reason for me to prepare. Because if I don't have enough money next month, at least I know I'll have food, you know what I mean? And water. And if I can't pay the electric bill, I got a generator backup to take care of my, that's, to me, it's all the more reason to be ready and to be prepared and to have that kind of stuff in mind. And there's so many my brother, he was traveling. So my daughter got married last month. Many of you guys remember that. I mean, it's already been a month. I can't believe it. Anyways, he was traveling to California to be at the wedding, and his flight was canceled, and he wasn't going to be able to. I mean, it's not as bad as what Silver Stacking Surfer just said. I wanted to call him Silver Surfer. Sorry, he is a silver. Anyways, the point is that my brother was like, dude, you should do an episode on how to survive in an airport. Well, lo and behold, we have it again this last week. So maybe we'll do an airport survival guide, urban survival in the airport. But there's so many things like that are like people aren't ready or prepared. And you see these videos of people throwing a fit because they don't get what they want. That's a sign of mental illness and mental weakness for sure. If something goes wrong, which by the way, it likely will, deal with it. Have the solution, be solution oriented. Don't throw a tantrum, for goodness sakes. Because why did you throw that tantrum? Well, because they didn't give me what I wanted. That's a lame excuse. You know what I mean? So if you're going to have, I think that's another type of excuse. Why did the economy go bad? Well, because the jerks and, the world elite you did this, that, the other. No, you didn't prepare. Yeah. Stop blaming everybody else as your excuse and get going on what you're doing. And I mean, I'm preaching to the choir today. Yeah. Right. Frankly. So thank you all for listening.
Well, that's another part about it is being unaware, just being asleep, whether purposefully or unintentionally. If it's unintentionally, that's one thing, right? Because, like some comments here, where did it find it here? But dang it, where is it? Anyway, you intentionally choose to, I'm just gonna sit back and watch the world burn, and take me with it. If I die, I die, take that attitude, which I don't appreciate personally. I don't get that. I don't understand it. But that's intentional, right? Whereas if you're ignorant, that's one thing, and that's really one of the reasons why we're doing this, is to help wake people up. But people can only wake themselves up. We can't really wake them up. That's one thing I've absolutely realized is no matter how much I bang my head against the wall, it's not going to wake anybody up. But hopefully one little gem is going to catch their attention, and then they can start to wake up little by little. But that's, I think, one of the excuses, or call it a reason, is people are just either blissfully unaware, they don't care, or they just haven't been introduced to it yet and haven't experienced that for themselves, like you said, Mike.
Or they're still planning on mom and dad taking care of it.
Yeah,
that it is
absolutely.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But there are so many, oh, my parents have stuff, I'll just go to their place. Okay, well, how are you going to get to their place? Do you have enough to get you there? Are you going to survive the journey? Right? Minimum questions to ask. But here's the bigger thing. What happens if they're gone?
Mm-hmm.
Then what? Right? We're the stacks on of planning and preparedness, right? We love to talk about what's your primary, what's your secondary, what are all the layers of contingency plans? What are all the things you can do? We may over fortify. That's why we believe in the ready radius, and we teach that in our books coming out in a couple of weeks. Super excited because that's done, and we've just finished the formatting, and we're just getting final approval to get it launched. So stay tuned. Go get your email into our database so that we can notify you as soon as it goes live. But it is a simplified strategy and approach to preparedness. It's called Ready Radius. Go to preppertalkradio.com. Join the email list, and you will be notified as soon as it drops. But going back, like, preparedness is living simpler, living with less, so that you can have more. You don't need all the bells and whistles of life. In fact, if you have all the bells and whistles of life, you're spending more time working to be able to take care of those things instead of enjoying what you have and enjoying the time you have.
So just to qualify what you just said, Scott, I agree with you 100%. However, if somebody wants to have the nice things and they're getting those things instead of being prepared, that's not good. But if you're totally like, let's say that you make a good enough income, that you've turned a lot of your income into wealth, you've got a fantastic set of foundational resources, and you want to go take a trip to Europe, or you want to go buy the Audi, or you want to go get a Tesla truck because you've already got your year supply, everything's set, then it's okay to me to go extravagant. However, you can still maybe give to the poor and the needy and some other charitable things. But the idea is that I don't say to people when I sit down with somebody about their financial plan, and we're going through a financial plan, it's like, what do you want out of life? Like, what would you like to have? So don't spend tomorrow's money today. Don't put yourself in jeopardy. Don't put your tomorrow or your future self in jeopardy for your foolish decisions today. If you're going to set yourself up today, and you set your future self up for success, and you have extra money after that, go for it. Have fun.
I know that's a big concern of, why people don't prep is they don't have the money, they can't afford it. And I know you've got an answer for that, Paris, because it can absolutely be true for some people. But I think for a lot of people, they're just not very wise. And they can put their funds to use in different ways.
Yeah, it was funny. I had a lady, I did a video on spending and making sure to track your spending a little better. And a lady commented, it was kind of funny. She says, I lost my debit card halfway through the month, and at the end of the month, I had a lot more money than I normally do. It's like, because
well, there's a clue.
You're not just swiping it randomly at the store to buy dumb stuff. Like she couldn't spend the money on dumb stuff, so she actually had money. And that's the reality. Just being aware. That's a prepper's mindset. Is somebody who's aware, who does things on purpose, who's mindful, and who is value based. Like, are these things bringing me value? And I love it. I love being a prepper.
Yeah, and just having cash on hand definitely limits that. For me, having cash on hand, do I really want to spend this? Whereas you just swipe in a card, you don't see it. It's just, out of sight, out of mind. And then you check your balance later, like, oh crap, where'd all this money go? But rather than having cash and here's my allotment for this month, whatever, lots of different ways to approach that. But
well, it's funny how many people live that life and there's ads now all over the web. Hey, how many actual subscriptions do you have? Why don't you download this app and find out? What are you paying for 3 Hulu subscriptions, right? We can choose what we put our time and attention and funds towards. If our funds are working for us, you could do whatever you want at that point. But if they're not, and you're doing dumb things and you've got 3 subscriptions to the same service, like let's have a reality check and change some ways that we live our life. Cut the excuses. You can't. It's not that you can't afford it. It's that you're not smart enough to control yourself. You lack discipline.
Yep.
You lack a desire. Like, I think that's the biggest problem is the weakness for most people is they lack a why. They lack the desire. They lack a reason to be better prepared, to be more resilient. And there are some who have, as we talked about in the beginning of the hour, some who have this idea, well, the government's going to come take care of me, or as we did a minute ago, mom and dad can help take care of me. Like, they think someone else can come help them. But the reality is, when something goes sideways, who's coming? Nobody. Or at least not right away. Then what?
Yeah. Well, Rebecca's comment here, this is totally true for me, is that once I see a need, I'm like, man, I gotta do that. I gotta be on top of that. Like my bug out location, whatever it might be, is like, I want to be prepared tomorrow. What do I have to do to be prepared tomorrow? But that's not realistic for me or most people. So I absolutely agree with you, Rebecca, in that for me, that's been a big stumbling block for me is we've talked about previously, there's a difference between preppers and survivalists. Survivalists focus more on skills, right? That's pretty much free. I mean, you can get on YouTube and download, and that is a huge part of prepping. It really is. I think more so than I gave it credit when I was, a beginning prepper. I was focusing more on the gear, and I think most people do. And that, while that's important, even more so is the mental side of it, the learning, the educational side of it, which can be free. And so, and that can take up a lot of time. I spend a lot of time working so I can make currency so I can go buy the gear. But in my spare time is when you spend that time to educate yourself, to realize you don't need so much gear, right?
Yep.
And the other thing too is that I don't think I have watched TV in years. My wife and I will pick a show one at a time, and we'll, that's kind of our date night. Once a week we'll watch an episode or 2 or 3. But most of the week I'm either working on my business. I'm trying to expand, myself. I'm working. Lately I've been calling people to have some more guests on the show. So we've got some guests coming up. I've been working with. We actually had a guest. Interestingly enough, we're going to have a guest next week. We're going to record with her on Friday. And we're going to have a guest coming up, but her power went out. She was supposed to be on the show last week. So for those of you who are wondering where our episode went yesterday, it's because we didn't have one because the guest's power went out and couldn't be on the show. And we're like, I guess we'll just, have a business meeting.
Chat for an hour. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So anyways, we didn't have an episode drop yesterday, but and for those of you who are listening on the podcast, it will have been the previous week. But yeah, we got spend time. If you have, that's another thing that you can do with your resource of time. Time is the one resources you can't get back. You can't make more of it. Like, you can make more money, you can get more money, you lose money, you go make more of it. Time, you can't get it back. So make sure that you're wise with your time. And I'm talking to myself right now big time, because I have a lot to learn about this. One of the things I've learned about is blocking my time. And I'm still learning about it, because I think it's going to be really helpful. But I agree, that's one of the big excuses. I don't have time to prep. I don't have time to learn the skills. I don't have time. Okay, well, how much TV did you watch last week? How much time did you scroll up and down on Instagram? How much time did you scroll on Facebook? Give me your screen time, report. You look on their iPhone, it says they were scrolling for 5 hours last week. Bro, you know what? Scroll for 2 and then learn for 3. You know what I mean? Like, change. There's things.
Honestly, though, how many people have only scrolled for 5 hours lately?
Well, okay, good point. But I'm just
Only.
Screen time. It's funny because like my brother-in-law was like, man, my screen time's 15 hours a day. What?
what?
Are you freaking kidding? Like, yeah, you could be on your phone way too much. I'm like, put that in your pocket. Like, if you don't have button pockets, like switch your pants, button your put in there, zip it up, whatever you got to do to not like look at it all day. You got to change your life. But like, there's so many distractions, Paris. You're 100% right, that we can allow to take our time and waste it. And I think that's the biggest challenge right now for most preppers and just life in general. You're like hitting the nail on the head.
I
You
think
could
another thing
do
for me,
so much
anyways,
more.
this is something I've been experiencing where, and I don't know, tell me if you guys, if you're listening, if this happens to you too, but I get to the point where in my mind, I think about all the things that I have to do, all the things that I want to do, all the things that I need to do. And then all of a sudden I just get overwhelmed with, I'm never going to do it all. I'm never going to make any progress. I'm never going to get there because there's too much to do. There's too many things. And so lately what I've decided to do is to take a deep breath, start thinking about, I am capable. I'm okay. It's going to be fine. I can do this, writing down a to-do list if that's what helps for you. But that's something that I've realized is that the world that we're in right now. So not only are there so many distractions, but then, for example, I'll bookmark something to come back to later and then realize, 2 years later, when I'm cleaning through my bookmarks, I'm like, oh, I never did go back to that, did I? So I think we have some really good intentions, but the reality is that we probably ought to take more time to just take a deep breath and say, okay, what's really important in our lives, and spend time doing that. Because I get overwhelmed quickly with all the things I want to do, all the things I think that I need to do, and all the things that I'm hearing other people do that I'm not, that makes them successful and I'm not doing it. So that must be why I'm not successful. So I now need to do that too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, dude. Like my brain, forget it. I'm like ADHD. I'm dead. Like, forget it.
Especially when it comes to business,
Mm-hmm.
You can go down that rabbit hole about how to be successful, and it just suck up so much time. Like, oh, this is so good. This is good quality. But what are you really going to do with it?
Well,
Sorry,
part of it is, in prepping, there's so many resources. Which ones do I want to spend my time researching and studying and learning and doing, right? It's overcomplicated, but it's also muddied with all the marketing messages. And it's funny because like I just went through my bookmarks yesterday and cleared out some from 8 years ago that I haven't looked at since. Like that's how, like, I was like, oh, I remember when I was doing PrepperCon, I'm like, oh, this is a good one. I'm going to save that for later. And I was going through and like, holy crap, I've got 130 in this folder. What is that? Like, that site's gone. This is like, boom, gone.
Some of the sites aren't even there anymore, are they?
Later.
Yeah.
They're not even there. Or like, oh, I saved a vehicle because I wanted to look at it to go buy something, right? Gone. Why did I save that link? I don't know. But there's so many things that are the well-intended things that we mean to do that might be intentional that we forget about because we put a note somewhere or bookmarked it and we don't go back to it because the weird things that distract us got in the way, or we allowed that to get in the way. I think we can do a lot more, and everyone can be a lot better in their pursuits, both prepping and personal and career, or I should say both prepping, personal and career, right? And anything else, by being more intentional with our time and how we spend it. And to answer the point you made about the anxiety of so many things going on, like what do I do? And sometimes it's hard to get things done because you're thinking about the thousands of things you've got to do. I heard this last week and it made a huge change for me in the last week so far. When anxiety starts peaking its head and overrunning, and I'm overthinking things, stop, because that portion of your brain can only do one thing at a time. It can either be fearful or anxiety driven, or it can be grateful. And I stop and I start writing down all the things I'm grateful for.
That's awesome.
Holy smokes. I couldn't sleep one night last week. I get insomnia from time to time because of it. And I'd heard that earlier that day and I was like, I'm going to try it. So guys, like, be intentional, find solutions that work for you, find ways to do things to help you be better prepared, to eliminate the excuses and eliminate the distractions, and just get more out of life.
Yeah.
You've got to take time to do it.
Of course, in preparing for this topic, I'm thinking, okay, why don't some people prep? What is it? For me, it's common sense. It's so very obvious, and I think it comes down to, at least what I've been able to determine for myself so far, what is really important to you. What is truly important? Are the things of the world important to you? Is your family important to you? What do you believe? What are your beliefs? Are you asking yourself the hard questions, or are you ignoring them? It's, I mean, of course, I'm just speaking for myself. But I would think that, for me, it's crazy to think that most people are not preppers, because you look to the past, and 100 years ago, everybody would be considered a prepper by now, by today's standards, right? A lot of people had their own gardens. They lived off what they produced, and so on and so forth. We all know the story. But what is more important to you nowadays than what's the difference between 100 years ago and now? And we've seen some great comments here in the comment section that I think refer directly to that. But I think once I truly realized, of course, I've always known my family is the most important thing to me, but it doesn't actually sink in until you realize what are the consequences. I'm always thinking about what are the possibilities versus consequences, right? Because someone will ask me, well, why do you always carry? Why do you always carry a gun? Are you scared? It's really unlikely you're ever gonna need to use that. Yeah, most likely. But what are the consequences if I don't have it? And so that's where my brain goes in this whole process of why people don't prep. And I'm generalizing other people. I know I prep. I assume I know why most of you prep. But why don't more people? Why aren't more people involved? Do they not understand? I mean, that's part of it. What are their excuses? What are the choices? What do they really value?
It's really strange how much there's so much confidence in the system, so much confidence in the societal norms that we have. And I feel like that's clearly on purpose. And, a lot of people are like, wait a minute, I'm just going to, why worry about all that stuff? I'm just going to go have fun on the lake, or I'm going to go have fun, just four-wheeling or whatever they do. And it's like, wait a minute, am I missing out on something that I should maybe be more?
Yeah.
Should I have more fun in life? I feel like I have a lot of fun anyway. I mean, I'm having fun. I don't know that I'm missing out on much, but
Yeah.
I'm sure there's ways to make more money and go do other things and have other experiences. But I feel like one of the things that is an excuse is that that's just not what we're seeing on TV. It's not what we're seeing in the news. And then people are so overwhelmed with all the different things that are happening in life. Like they're like, look, I just want to do my 9 to 5 and I want to come home. I want to watch my sitcom, kind of escape into that. The addiction of, there's people say there's different kinds of addiction. You can have substance abuse and you can have TV abuse, and so they're just addicted to a different thing and they're just caught in the matrix, if you will. And the excuse is that, oh, everything's fine. What do we got to worry about in the United States? We don't have to worry. Well, one of the things that I think is foreign countries worry about stuff because they legit have stuff happening all day, every day. There's stories coming across, that's one of the things that I like about social media, is because we're seeing things that are happening in other countries that we would never see if we were just in our own little bubble. And so there's some good in that. I think there's some good in that as people see these horrible things happening in other countries or in other areas, or they're seeing the disasters happening in other areas. I think that there's they're starting to wake up to the, wait a minute, this is actually something that can happen. But then there's still that cognitive dissonance that, well, if it's not happening to me, I don't have to worry about it. So there's something that we need to do as preppers to help our friends realize, hey, look, what's happening over there, sure, isn't happening to you right now, but it doesn't mean that it can't be happening to you pretty soon. Or it doesn't mean that it isn't happening to somebody in the world and you can be ready for it or start to get ready for it in case. I mean, everybody knows, hey, just in case. Everybody knows hey, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Those are common things that we hear all the time. So we just need to take it from concept or take it from speaking into doing, into action. And I feel like there's I'm in my current neighborhood. I'm the emergency preparedness coordinator and block captain and all that too for the city.
Me
And so
too.
I'm going to have a challenge here in the next little while is how I'm going to motivate my neighbors to get better prepared. So
Yeah.
I'm right in the middle of figuring this whole thing out myself too.
Well, it's funny, like we all have the same hobbies and the same end up getting pulled into the same things all around preparedness. I think going back on Shane's question, like for the last 100 years ago, people were all prepping because that's the way life was. And since then, we've been conditioned not to. We've been educated, you don't need to. And we've been wowed by the technology and by the systems and by the services into a place where the new normal is, well, I don't need to because I have that. Like I remember as a kid going to the grocery store and it was a lot smaller. And I'm like, well, hey, where's this? And they're like, oh, let me check in back.
Mm-hmm.
Now the stores are bigger and you're like, hey, do you have any of this left?
It's
No,
not on the
not
shelf.
on the shelf. It's not there. We're all out. I'm like, you don't have anything in the back? A couple of doors that you load everything off of. Like it comes off a truck, gets staged, and then they roll it out at night. Like there's nothing else there. The fragility in seeing that, for us, it's like, oh, I see there's a problem. For people who have never experienced the other way, they look at it and go, what's the holdup? It'll just magically appear tomorrow until it doesn't.
Yeah, this whole
Right?
world.
Y2K, I was just going to say Y2K happened this week, as one of our listeners said. It's not when you expect it, but if you're prepared for it, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, it seems that everything that we're being fed, that we're being programmed, is all about leisure, right? You want your life to be leisure and convenient and everything, and so that I think that's where most people fall into that trap and say, oh, that's too hard. Why would I need to do that? It's I'm supposed to take my time off and not work and not do hard things because I work all day. And so I need to take advantage of all this leisure. That word is poison, if you ask me.
I deserve it too.
Exactly. Yeah, I deserve it because I worked all day so hard. I hate that word. That's poison.
Well, and it's funny because in the comments, one of the things people are like, well, I deserve the leisurely things. Or I want the toys. I want the boats. I want the cars. Well, a lot of the preps I have are the toys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Bear's saying here, yeah.
But the toy, I bought the toy because it's a prep. I don't need, if I still had these and hadn't had a boating accident and lost all my firearms, I don't need 12 guns at the same time. I can't fire them all off at the same time successfully in succession or at the right targets. But each has a different need and purpose, or at least had before the accident.
Yeah.
Right? But like, I think so many people are like, well, I could get ready, but I want to go on a trip to Disneyland. Oh, I could get ready, but we haven't been to the Caribbean yet, and we want to go try that. Oh, we haven't been to see the Great Wall of China, so we're going to go spend all our money and do that. But we don't have any prep saved up. It's the same as like, what is your retirement plan? You talk to people all the time about this, Paris. What is your retirement plan? What are you going to do? Well, I'll just sell the house and I'll have some money from that. And what if the market crashes? Oh, well,
that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
Well, what's crazy is
it'll just come back.
In America, we live in supposedly the land of the free and the home of the brave, but there's not too many. With credit card debt, there's not too many people very free, and with all the different things we're seeing, there's not enough brave of us brave. Anyways, the point is that I think the statistic was the last time I heard one, 95 out of 100 people who make it to age 65 are dependent upon Social Security or the government or family if they're still alive. 5 out of 100. One of them has some savings, and 4 of them are like some mixture there are financial independent. 5% have any kind of financial in the day and age that we live in now, with all the tools we have for financial literacy and understanding financial concepts and saving and investing and preparing. 5%? Are you kidding me? Like, we're supposed to be the wealthiest nation in the world, and we are. because the world's even worse than that. But that's the reality. It's like we should have, with what we know and what we're doing, we should have 95% of people retiring with substantial reserves and resources. It's just, to me, it's like there's the PhDs in these marketing firms and marketing agencies are brilliant. They know all the buttons to push to get you to just salivate over their product or service or widget,
and you
or
have to have it right,
gizmo, and just here. It's like zombies. We turn our money over, like, take my money, take my money, take my money. They get rich,
it's
and
status
have huge
symbols.
houses, and we're just like, what happened?
Yeah, they're status symbols. It's keeping up with the Joneses. It's again all part of a plan that pushes consumerism, because that's what our economy is. What, 70% consumer? Is that what it is, Paris? Is that right? 60 or 70% consumerism that supports this economy, and I do that in air quotes, right?
What's crazy is that savings, if we had more people with a significantly higher savings rate and even savings balances, the economy would actually be stronger. It's just the way that we've talked about this. Especially that episode we had, I don't remember when it was, but we kind of highlighted that Glenn Beck, when he had that international banker on to talk about how banks have created debt to kind of keep us where we are. And the original purpose of debt was to create and research and development and to grow the economy versus the way it is being done now. And that's another thing that kind of correlates to and goes along with these excuses, is that, well, that's just the way things are.
Yeah.
So that's how we have to do it. What can I do about the banking institutions? What can I do about credit cards? What can I do about my job? What can I do about inflation? What can I do about voting? Like, they're just going to steal I can't say this out loud because of YouTube. They're just going to steal that's going to happen in November and the second Thursday, so what's the point of even taking my ballot, or what's the point? And I don't blame a lot of Americans who are just like, forget it. But at the same time, I'm like, bro, if you don't fight for something, if you're not going to fight for freedom and liberty, what are you fighting for? Like, there's nothing else more important than that. Like, not just for you, but for your kids and the next generation. We got to step up and stand up, and we do have to make changes, and hopefully we can do it without getting kinetic. But if you read the daggum scriptures, I shouldn't say daggum, but if you read the scriptures, we're going to get kinetic at some point. Like, it's in there. And so I hope that people, I think people will wake up, but a lot of them will be after it's too late. And that's all I can do.
That's the thing. It's like, you could throw people through situations and experiences, but if they don't learn from it, they won't change.
Yep.
And that's why so many of us will repeat the same trial over and over in our life, because we refuse to change or learn from it. I guess that's as we're getting close to wrapping up, like, what is it really going to take? And it's a wake-up call.
But you have to answer that call. You got to be aware of it, right?
Yeah. Like, I remember in high school, I thought I had all these burdens at one point. I was like, oh, I got wrestling tonight, and I got school I have to go to, and I've got a job I've got to do, and I've got this, and I've got that, and then I got to mow the lawn on Saturday, and I got to go to work, and then, I never have any me time or free time. And I'm like, I look back and I was like, man, I had so much free time back then. Yeah, I had so little worries and cares. Right. And now I look at my life and I'm like, I have so much going on and so many responsibilities, but I'm grateful for every single one of them. And prepping has made it easier to have the quality of life I have. But I mean, I grew up in a prepping household where we didn't know it was called prepping. We just knew this is what you do. And I'm an anomaly because most of the people I know aren't that way. They didn't grow up that way. I feel very blessed that I grew up the way I did, because it's made me think critically. And I think there's a lack of wake-up call and there's a lack of critical thinking I think that's the number one thing we have in the world is, especially in America, a lack of the ability to think critically and weigh out options and actually do something valuable with your time and effort. People expect someone else to give them the answer. And we need to get stronger and better at doing this ourselves. Because then as a community, we'll do a whole heck of a lot better come whatever comes. Do you guys have any final thoughts for the night before I wrap it up?
Well, I just think one final thought that kind of a little bit of self-promotion, but at the same time, it kind of goes into getting the awareness out. I looked at the different, we have 88 people that have given us a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. And I'd love to see that get to 100. You know, we have around between 1,000 and 1,100 downloads per episode. I feel like 12 of you could go give us 5 stars, or hopefully 5 stars. 12 of you could go give us 5 stars, get us to 100. I know the algorithm on a lot of these podcasting programs, the algorithm looks at the 5 stars reviews, how many stars, how many people are actually reviewing to listening. And so if you'll just take a few minutes and give us a review, we'd really appreciate it. We'd really love it. Matter of fact, I'll talk to the guys, and I'm going to throw this out there real fast. Maybe we'll pick a review every once in a while and read it. And so you might get highlighted or a shout out if you do give us a review. So that's something I thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of our community. I mean, we've got people in the comments right now. For those that are listening later, there's literally people in the comments right now saying, we need to go 2 hours. We need to go longer. We need to do more. And we'd love to do more. But we just got, we're doing what we can.
Difficult.
So thank you.
Yeah, I think my closing thoughts would be is what has helped me the most in this process is just being consciously competent. And I've said that before, is realizing what are excuses and what are reasons, and try not to lie to myself, try and be honest with myself and ask myself the right questions. And that can be very difficult to do. It's a long process, has been for me to kind of realize where I'm at and where I'm going. So I think that would be my last, 2 cents to say, is try and be consciously making decisions.
What's great about this is it's similar to perspectives, but different between the three of us. The focus, and thank you to everyone that's listening and participating tonight. The focus of today is to get rid of the excuses. And the only way that's going to happen is to actually assess your situation and see what's wrong. The people you have in your life that won't prep, they make all the excuses. The only way for this to change is for them to experience hardship. And that's the beauty of hardship in life, is it is a great teacher if we let it teach us. We've been through our own fair shares, and so have you as a listener, but there's more to come. That's just life. And that's how you become amazing by the end of it. Right. And then honestly, that's not the end of it. We know that. But if you're listening and if you want to be more ingrained and more part of things, make sure you join us over at Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance on Facebook. We are working to build our own off social community, which we'll announce as soon as it's ready. We are also working to add a few really cool things for you guys. But if you want to get more involved, you want to get more content, that's the first place to go. Guys, if you want to help support us so that we can do more, make sure you check out the link in bio. Right? Go buy from our affiliates. That helps us afford to do more. Right? If you like the giveaway we just did, we just gave away 2 tactical backpacks with ham radios and ferro rods and some swag. Like, that was a fun giveaway. The more you guys support the show, the more we can do that. So if you want giveaway items and stuff like that, make sure you're connected and you're in our groups, on our email, and checking out. Hey, if you want to check out some cool gear, go over to our friends over at survivalfrog.com. It's better than Arby's because they have the canned meats that's good for 25 years, right? When it comes to the apocalypse, we're prepping for that practical, but when it comes to the apocalypse, what do you want to eat? Do you want to eat cardboard meat that you don't have any water to hydrate, or do you want the good stuff in gravy? Like, ooh, doesn't that sound good? Go to survivalfrog.com, get the good stuff, use the code PrepperTalk. You can get a whole bunch of other cool stuff there. We love their products. Go check it out. It'll help support the show. It'll help you get better prepared. It'll help us make more giveaways and more fun stuff available for you. And most importantly, it builds a community where we can all spend more time together. And isn't that the best?
It is the best. You guys are the best. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys too. And thank you everyone for listening. Thanks for tuning in and not for tuning out. Keeping that head on a swivel and that dialed in to Prepper Talk Radio. Have a great night, everybody, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Take care, guys. Thanks so much.